Today's episode was sponsored by Little House Lessons.
People make a lot of assumptions about me when they first meet me. I'm anxious, I'm lazy, I have a lot of clothes with my name written on them, I wear a lot of stripes, I own one of those hats with a propeller on top, I play the ukulele, I've faked my own death before, I don't know how to have a conversation with a stranger. And you know what? They're all true. Although that wasn't always the case. For the longest time, I didn't know how to play the ukulele. I was completely failing to live up to everyone's expectations of me as a silly little boy man, and it was awful. When I covered a pop song, it wasn't nearly cute enough. My luau's were soulless, and confessing my love to my quirky neighbor through song was completely out of the question. I was disgusted with myself for not fully living up to the stereotype people had of me, and I needed a change. Which is why I signed up for Little House Lessons. I have taken many music lessons in my life. Like, boy howdy did my parents want me to learn to play the piano, but it never took. I think after 6 years, I knew how to play one song. Old Joe Clark. And that was the piano. All you have to do is press a button to make the noise you want. I couldn't even begin to comprehend how you'd play something with strings. It genuinely felt like witchcraft to me. If you were to ask me 6 months ago, I would have said that there is not a single version of myself in the entire multiverse that played an instrument. I genuinely thought I wasn't capable of it, but then I started taking lessons with Little House. And you know, why just tell you how good Little House Lessons is when I can show you? I have progress videos. This is me attempting to play the ukulele after 2 lessons. Wait, 1 second, I can do this. Thank you. This is me playing the ukulele after an entire summer of lessons. You can tell that time passed because I have a beard now. Little House Lessons is run by Ian, who is great. I cannot recommend him enough. He's a passionate teacher who is excited to work with you on the music you love. Literally, I would bring in songs and he'd figure out how to play them in like 2 seconds and then start teaching them to me. And you know, that makes sense. He's a published songwriter with music spanning over 30 television shows and 1,400 episodes, so he knows what he's doing. And it really did feel like the lessons were being adapted to my needs. Like, full disclosure, the main point of me taking them was to learn how to play my theme song to show you guys what a good teacher he is. But me being me, I kept finding other things I wanted to learn, and he would just go with it, while still managing to teach me the thing I was supposed to learn. As you can see, I got there. I just also know that lava song from Pixar now, too. Lessons are entirely online, and all ages, neurospicy flavors, and walks of life are welcome, meaning that literally any one of you watching this or the people you love could sign up. If you're like me, the idea of online lessons scares you because you're anxious and you don't know how to have a conversation with a stranger. But honestly, he's got a really good setup going with all sorts of cameras and such, so I didn't even notice. If anything, it made the lessons easier to follow, and it was honestly just convenient. I got to learn from my bedroom. Instruments include piano, guitar, bass guitar, or ukulele. And areas of study include music theory, ear training, songwriting, home recording, and mixing and mastering. So, whether you have specific goals in mind or are just looking to start from scratch, Little House Lessons is going to be for you. Ukulele lessons were not really on my 2025 bingo card, but I really had a blast. And I feel like the best recommendation I can give you is that I plan on continuing to take them, even though I am no longer contractually obligated to do so. And believe me, it takes a lot to get me to do something. I'm very lazy. And you know what? You don't have to just take my word for it. You can try it for yourself risk free. Little House is offering the first 30 people to sign up one free 60-minute lesson or two free 30-minute lessons. So scan the QR code or go to littlehouselessons.com/willymuse to sign up now. Worst case scenario, you get something for free. Best case scenario, you discover a new passion you never knew you had. So yeah, thank you so much to Little House Lessons for sponsoring this. And with that, let's start the video. My old name was Mark Spiegel. I just started this year off by more or less announcing that going forward, I would be focusing on making videos about the 2000s procedural drama Bones. And then somewhere around March, I lost that focus. And I guess I probably should have seen this coming. I don't think I've ever stuck with one of my projects for longer than a month or two. Unless you count anxiety as a project, which it kind of is the way I do it. For some reason, though, I thought that this was gonna be the one that stuck. And because of that, I started making plans for the long term. Basically, I decided to save some of the juicier episodes to discuss for later because I didn't want to use them up and end up in a situation where every video I made was getting less and less interesting. There was one episode in particular that I was keeping in my back pocket because it was without question the one that people asked me to cover the most. As best as I can tell, a lot of you guys found me through a creator named Lily Simpson who makes videos about how the topic of transness is covered in pop culture. And it seems that they covered Bones around the same time that I released a Bones episode, and that caused the algorithm to send a lot of their traffic my way so that people could watch more Bones content. Bones. And because of that, a lot of you have asked me to cover the Bones episode that deals with the topic of transness. Even though, as best as I can tell, most of you asking have already seen Lily Simpson's video. And without having watched it, I can confidently say that it is a million times better than mine is about to be. Still, in my experience, when a lot of people ask me to cover a topic, that topic tends to do well. So I decided to keep the episode in my back pocket for when my views started to slump and I need a little boost. And then I stopped talking about Bones exclusively and forgot that that was the plan. Until, for reasons I'm not sure I'm legally allowed to say, I wanted this video in particular to do well. So I decided to ask you guys. I made a poll on my community page, and when I was coming up with options for the poll, I remembered the episode I was saving for when I wanted a video to do well, and I included it, and it won. The results were close though. Y'all are indecisive. That's probably why we get along so well. So later that night, I got high and remembered that Madam Web exists, and it made me really want to talk about Madam Web. So I made a new poll that included Madam Web to see if that got me a more decisive result, and it did, but the Bones episode still won. Everything was telling me that my next video should be the transphobic episode of Bones. Except for quite a few people in the comments. Many of you said that you got enough transphobia in your daily lives and you didn't need more of it in your YouTube videos, which... yeah, that makes sense. It hasn't been very long since my last Bones video, but it's hard to deny that in that short period of time, things have gotten a lot worse. Seeing those comments made me wonder if maybe things have changed enough that there isn't a market for this episode anymore. Unfortunately, a lot of other comments were making jokes about how voting doesn't matter because I never listen to the results anyway, and because I am a spiteful person, I didn't want those people to be proven right by me not discussing this episode. So I'm gonna do it, but I did want to make sure I did it in a way that was as sensitive to the subject matter as possible. And that starts by issuing a trigger warning. I'm not sure who clicked on a video called "The Time Bones Got Transphobic" if they need that sort of content warning, but if that is you, I suggest turning this off right now and watching something else. Preferably something else that I made so I still get views. This episode is very of its time. And while it's honestly a lot less offensive than I was expecting, it's still pretty offensive. But yeah, with that, let's start the episode. This is season 4, episode 7, The He and the She. That is actually what it's called. There's a reason I included that content warning. The case this week begins when the waist-up portion of a skeleton washes up on the shores of the Chesapeake Bay.
I'm not able to ascertain sex without a pelvic bone.
Well, if this scrap of cloth is a bathing suit, then probably female.
Okay, you guys will never guess where they're going with this. Just kidding, you've 100% already figured out what they're setting up. This episode feels dated, but not in the way you're thinking. Well, not just in the way you're thinking. At their core, Bones episodes are mysteries, and mysteries are designed to play with the audience's expectations. But based on the way this is written, I get the sense that the audience's expectations were very different back then. The first 15 minutes or so feels like... okay, so I'm sure before anyone knew it was a possibility, putting a spring snake in a jar was an amazing prank. People probably shit their pants the first time they saw it happen. It doesn't really carry the same oomph today, though. It's become commonplace enough that now when someone hands you a thing of peanut brittle out of the blue and tells you to open it, odds are you're going to be a little suspicious. Act 1 of this episode is more or less building to the reveal that trans people exist. So if you already know that trans people exist, there's not a whole lot of suspense here. It feels very obvious what's going on. Honestly, even if you didn't know that trans people exist, you might start to suspect that they did based solely on the amount of foreshadowing in this episode. The sense I get is that the writers aren't just operating under the assumption that the audience has never heard of being transgender before. It seems like they're worried that the mere concept of a trans person is going to blow viewers' fucking minds. I feel like the more outlandish the reveal, the more the show needs to ease the viewers into it. And if that's the case, then the writers seem to believe that trans people are on the same level as aliens that are also ghosts and ninjas. I would watch that episode. They drop a lot of hints. They mention that the victim had reconstructive surgery.
Could be a breast implant.
Breasts, that's my department, okay? You give me a serial number, my guys will be able to track that down.
Multiple times.
These sockets have been ground down.
Okay, that could be useful. Especially if you have an explanation.
Plastic surgery. Oh, she had fake boobs too.
They talk about how there's no record of her 5 years ago.
Why go to this much trouble to make yourself look beautiful and then move to the end of the world?
Well, the background check on her turned up suspiciously little, all right? There was no credit cards, no driver's license. Officially, she didn't exist before 5 years ago.
Also, I can't be sure, but I think at one point they may try to incept the idea that trans people exist into our subconsciouses.
Well, in that case, what about the backbone?
A clean transection between the L1 and L2 vertebrae.
I know that that's the right word, but part of me feels like if transect didn't sound so much like transsexual, they would have said cut in half. Watching this in 2025 kind of feels like eating a chocolate chip cookie without the chocolate chips. It's not bad necessarily, but so much of the overall experience is built around one important ingredient, so when you take it away, everything else feels a little bit pointless and boring. If you don't think that the idea a person can be trans is a twist on par with The Sixth Sense, then this episode is going to lose a lot of what makes it interesting, and since I don't, I found it to be a bit of a slog. Although that said, there were points that relied so heavily on a 2008 understanding of trans people that it kind of swung back around to being entertaining again. I think my favorite part of the episode is when they find the lower half of the body. They spend so much time explaining to us how they know that this is the same person as the top half. And I think that's because they were genuinely worried that if they didn't make it explicit, the audience wouldn't believe them.
There's more tissue on this half. And just because we have the top of a body and the bottom of a body doesn't mean it's all the same body.
This half starts where the other half ends, at the L2 vertebra. Coincidence? I think not.
You'd think that would be enough, but no, they keep going.
Based on the lack of hemorrhagic tissue, this victim was already dead when cut in half.
He's in the water. Drowning, maybe, or is pushed from a boat. When he reaches for the boat, his fingers are smashed. He drowns and then is cut in half later in some maritime mishap.
He.
Triangular pubis, no evidence of a ventral arc. The pelvic bone speaks. It says, I be male.
The pelvic bone can say whatever it wants to say. This part here says female.
What part's that?
It's called a vagina.
And going.
Well, I can do a DNA comparison to find out if these two sets of human remains come from the same victim.
The measurements of the vertebrae match perfectly. I'm nearly positive that it's all one victim.
Who is
Male.
and female.
What could it all mean? Do you think it's wizards? And you'd think that once they figured out that this was a person with a male pelvic bone and a vagina, These two trained medical professionals would be like, oh, okay, I get what's going on now. But no, they still seem confused. And a little bit frightened.
We have one victim with two sexes.
As best as I can tell, Dr. Saroyan is one of the top coroners in the world. So you'd think she would have heard tell of trans people at some point. And like I said, I'm going to do my best to keep this video from getting too heavy. So all I'll say on that is that it suggests a hopeful alternate universe where this forensic lab has never seen a trans victim before. Unfortunately, in real life, I don't think that would be the case. As you can see from that clip, the intern today is Vincent Nigel Murray. And not only is this episode his first appearance, but based on the way they're talking, it also seems like this is the first appearance of any of the rotating interns. And that's more or less what the B story is about. People in the lab don't really seem all that happy about the change. Hodgins in particular seems to be having a hard time adjusting, and he's coping by being actively hostile to his new coworker.
Remains show traces of fresh water and pelagic sediment, commented Chesapeake Bay. Grad student?
He's done very well so far.
He'll disappoint.
Why?
He's honestly just mean.
I discovered microscopic tooth shards from the Alosa sapidissima, also known as the American shad, and what flesh there is.
In the 1700s, the shad was especially valued as a delicacy.
Yeah, fascinating.
Like, really, really mean.
I won't disappoint. I graduated with first-class honors from Leeds. Also, I have a retentive memory.
Ah, that would explain the, informative tangents.
Does Brennan put Mr. in front of your name?
Yes.
It's a very subtle way of saying you're not a doctor.
And I've gone on record saying that I do not care for Mr. Nigel Murray, so I get being annoyed by him, but I feel like Hodgins never really gives him a chance to be annoying. He just kind of starts attacking him for no reason. And I don't know, I guess maybe there was some bad interaction between them that we didn't see, but I have just shown you every time they interact on screen, and based on that, Hodgins kind of just seems like a bully.
Can I ask you something?
Oh, is there any way to say no?
That feels very unprofessional. I feel like I say this a lot, but is there no HR department in the Bones office? I guess the reason he's upset is because his friend Zach is more or less being replaced right now, but at best I'd say that that was an immature way of dealing with this situation. Although given that Mr. Nigel Murray has no idea who Zach is, I'd say a better word to describe it would be unhinged. Also, I get being disappointed that Zach is gone, but I feel like the reason behind his departure is legitimate enough that Hodgins should at least be understanding.
Whatever happened to whoever it was who used to work here before me?
He joined forces with a serial killer who was the last in a long line of cannibalistic murderers specializing in knocking off members of secret societies and building skeletons out of their body parts.
Wow. I hope that doesn't happen to me. So he's not coming back?
No. He's locked up for the rest of his life. But we all still like him.
I guess I've never really dealt with my best friend being sentenced to jail for life because he was a serial killer's apprentice, and I imagine that that does come with a lot of complicated emotions, but you shouldn't deal with those emotions by taking them out on a random intern, because Mr. Nigel Murray does not deserve that.
Excuse me.
Hello, hello, hello.
You familiar with the expression, that's way too much car for you?
I believe that's one of ours, actually, so yes.
Hey. I want to show you something.
I want to show you something.
Vroom, vroom, kid.
Oh. I guess he does. God damn it. I feel compelled to ask the question again. Does this office not have an HR department? The fuck is wrong with these people? I don't even think he knows Angela's name at this point. To him, she is just a random woman from his office trying to do her job. And he decided to react to that by threatening to expose himself to her, I guess? I don't even know what he was implying there. Although, to be clear, this doesn't absolve Hodgins. Most of his hostility happens before Mr. Nigel Murray reveals himself to be a sex pest, so he's still an asshole too. Especially because that is not the correct way to react to that situation. He doesn't really defend Angela. It feels more like he's using this as an opportunity to bully Mr. Nigel Murray some more. The implication there is kind of that if he were hotter, it would be okay to harass her in the office. I don't know. Most of the people on this show are monsters. The thing Angela wanted to show Hodgins was a reconstructive drawing of the victim's face. Says,
here she is as a woman.
Not bad. I mean, the sketch is okay.
Here I made her more masculine. I made the bony prominences more robust, increased the size of the mastoid processes and the nuchal crests.
Seldom seen bigger nuchal crests.
It doesn't look like anybody you recognize?
Should it?
I also added facial hair. Do you recognize him now?
It's that guy.
Oh, evil spirits, come out.
That's exactly what I thought.
okay, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for a second and accept that Angela knew what kind of beard she needed to add in order to properly dead name that woman through art, but I refuse to believe that they were able to figure out the victim's identity based on that picture alone. There are currently at least 12 versions of that guy on every college campus in America. One of them taught my seminar on Walt Whitman, so the idea that the entire Bones crew would instantly guess which exact one Angela just drew is absurd. Especially because the drawing isn't even that accurate.
This money belongs to God, not me. Who will join me in giving God what is rightfully His? He is asking you now, at this moment. What is your answer? What is your answer to God when He calls your name? Will you deny Him?
Pastor Patrick Stevenson.
Disappeared 6 years ago.
Oh, wow. I got it right. He disappeared from Vietnam or Thailand, one of those places.
Yeah, on a world tour.
In her past life, her name was apparently Patrick Stevenson, and she kind of sucked. She was more or less a con artist who stole money from people under the guise of religion. 6 years earlier, she went to Thailand, where she abandoned her wife and son by faking her own death and medically transitioning. Although the explanation her church gave is that she was the first person to be raptured, which, credit where credit is due, that's a solid lie. Once they figure out her previous identity, it leads them to interviewing her wife and son, and though those interviews do take up a sizable chunk of the episode, I'm not going to go too deep into them because they don't really matter. Like, at all. Honestly, the only reason I'm not complaining more about how dumb it is that they just magically recognize the victim from Angela's drawing is that it doesn't really have any bearing on the actual investigation. They very easily could have solved this case without ever knowing who she used to be. Honestly, I think this is the first case in the history of the show that could have been solved using Occam's razor. There's a very obvious explanation here, and I kind of get the sense that they did it that way on purpose. Every episode needs a way to draw the viewer in, and that's usually given to us in the form of a lot of twists and turns. But this week it kind of feels like the writers decided that the fact that the victim was trans was all the hook they needed. It seems like they were worried the audience would have enough on their plate trying to wrap their head around the idea of a woman born in the body of a man, so they pared down the actual story to its most basic form. I actually think you can still see some of the scars from where they cut down elements of the plot. At one point, the ex-wife seemingly gives the team their next lead.
Did he have any reason to fear for his life?
A man named Arthur Ford was arrested for assaulting Patrick.
Why did he assault your husband?
He had a son. The boy donated his entire trust fund to the church.
But then this is literally the next scene.
Arthur Ford died of pancreatic cancer 3 years ago.
Oh.
Seems to me like we didn't need to hear about any of that. And I remember 2008 less and less every day, so I have no clue if they were right to be this worried that the people watching this show would have a hard time making sense of a trans person, but one thing I can say with absolute certainty is that the people in this show sure as shit do. I haven't been a detective since my pension came in, so I guess I can't really judge, but it feels like there's a lot of terrible detective work going on here. Like I said, this is one of the simpler cases the show has ever had, and I think the only reason this episode isn't over in 2 scenes is that they go down a lot of unnecessary paths. Once they figure out that the victim was trans, they kind of just assume that her death had something to do with the fact that she was trans, and it doesn't. Had the victim been anyone else, I think they would have had this thing wrapped up somewhere around the 20-minute mark. Tell me if you can guess what happened based on the first half of the episode alone. I won't be able to hear you because that's not how videos work, but still, yell it out once you think you know where this is going. Or I guess you could comment. That would probably be more beneficial for me. They figure out the victim's identity very easily by tracing the serial number on her oft-mentioned breast implants. Her name was Patricia because if you're a trans woman who was given the name Patrick, you have to change your name to Patricia. Those are the rules. And she was also a pastor, but like a good one. Once she transitioned, she stopped using her religion as a way to scam people and actually started to sincerely preach the word of God. She moved to a small island off the coast of the Chesapeake Bay where she led a congregation that seemed to genuinely love and respect her. And when they learned that, Booth and Bones go to her house where they find a heartfelt message from one of her parishioners on her answering machine.
You have one new message.
Hey, it's JP again. I'm sorry. I miss you. I need to see you. It's important. I really need you, Patty. Please call. Please.
Sounds like a lost sheep in need of religious counseling.
Sounds more like a desperate boyfriend.
They bring him into the station where Booth interviews him while Angela does this weird Cyrano de Bergerac thing where she whispers into his ear the whole time. Even though that feels wildly out of her area of expertise as a facial reconstructionist.
Hey, Booth, I'm looking at these pictures you gave me, and body language and facial expressions tell some very interesting
What are
stories.
your insights?
She swam every single day, yeah. You don't need me for that insight. Ask anybody.
He holds himself separate from the congregation. What do you think that means?
How long have you been a member of the Inclusion Church?
Well, I joined about 6 months ago.
Oh, he's a latecomer to the church, huh? It's a good one.
Thank you for sharing that.
Why would anybody lie about when they joined a church?
And yeah, it's clear that he had a close, if complicated, bond with the deceased.
So what brought you to the church?
I had a drinking problem, which gave me problems with the law, which gave me marital problems.
You served 2 years, less a day for assault.
When I got out of jail, I wanted my wife back. I wanted my life back.
It doesn't look like things are going so great with the wife.
Are you living with your wife again?
Got a ways to go before Rita trusts me whole hog, you know. Plus, she's not that excited about the religious aspect.
Including credits, there are currently 27 minutes left in this 45-minute episode. But I'm going to pause here and let you guys guess what you think happened based on what I just showed you. I really think they could have wrapped things up a lot quicker if they just put their thinking caps on. A man has developed a close bond with a woman that the man's wife is not happy about, and then the woman ends up split in two off the coast of Maryland. You'd think at the very least the feds would be suspicious of the wife, but they're not. At least not until the end when they realize she did it. After a lot of red herrings involving the pastor's former life as a worse pastor, the Bones crew discovers that the cause of death was being run over by a boat. And they soon learn that the boat in question belongs to the guy that Booth just interviewed.
This is definitely the boat that struck Patricia Ludmuller.
What?
Twice.
Couldn't deal with the rejection, JP?
Our psychological expert says that many men freak out when they find out the woman they've been sleeping with used to be a man.
We never slept together. I wanted to. I wanted her. She wanted me. But she refused. I'm still married.
They go to arrest him, but then Booth sits behind the wheel of the boat, and he realizes that the seats are far too short for the guy.
Sure we'll find what he used to smash her fingers right here in the boat. My guess is this.
Oh, those seats. They aren't adjustable. How tall do you think JP is?
190 to 195 centimeters.
Give me a simple height.
6'3" or 4".
How about his wife?
Oh, perhaps 5'2".
That's all I need.
Only then do they start to accept that despite being quite untraditional in their eyes, this case has the most traditional ending it possibly could.
JP, you didn't restore this boat for yourself, did you?
Pastor Patricia said I should do something for someone else. Someone I love.
And you should have built it for her. I waited for you to get out of prison. And I waited for you to get sober. And I waited for you to get tired of this stupid church. And all you did was fall in love with another woman.
I never slept with her, Rita.
I don't believe that. I'll never believe that.
And yeah, had the boat had adjustable seats, that man would probably be rotting in prison right now, because in their mind, the most logical explanation is that that dude killed his pastor because he was angry that he unknowingly entered into a sexual relationship with a trans woman. And that's a running theme of the episode. They kind of just decide that somebody must have killed her because she was trans. And so a lot of what they do here is try to think of reasons you might want to kill a trans person. And in their defense, I don't think they're wrong for doing that necessarily. Transphobia is real, so I think they absolutely should consider those possibilities. But in trying to brainstorm ways other people might be prejudiced, they kind of let some of their own prejudices slip out.
Look, there's no way the guy on that answering machine knew that he was transgender.
How do you know?
Well, because I know and ain't too proud to beg phone call when I hear one, all right? He had no idea that she wasn't a real woman.
It's very insightful.
Thank you. Insightful, see?
Except for the real woman slip.
Have you made many?
Yeah, your presupposition that nobody could possibly want to be with a trans person if they knew they were trans is sounding a little turfy. In the future, please make sure to call them real women when you're talking about how they're not deserving of love. And I guess this is where I should start trashing this episode for being a dated, hateful pile of garbage. And believe me, there's nothing I want to do more. My job is so much easier when I get to do that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's that simple. Don't get me wrong, this episode absolutely fails at being respectful of trans people. But I also think it's trying really hard. And for a Bones episode, that's kind of the best you can hope for. There are moments here and there that are actually a lot more nuanced and sensitive than a network drama would be today.
Generally, transgendered people feel that they're the victim of a cosmic mistake. They're certain from a young age that they were born into the wrong body. Surgery and hormone treatments are a way to correct that biological mistake.
Which is why Patricia Ludmuller's past only went back 5 years.
Are pastors allowed to think that God makes those kind of mistakes?
Do you think God makes that kind of mistake?
Well, no, I think that God expects us to overcome certain things.
The term trans conveys a meaning of beyond, across, moving further. There's a very spiritual component.
Of course, there are also moments like this.
How do they do that?
They split the penis and then turn it inside out, carefully so as not to damage the nerves, and then they use the glands to create a nerve cluster dense enough to achieve orgasm.
Okay, new rule, no surgical details, all right?
Booth, you look at corpses for a living. I've seen you discuss dinner plans at a crime scene before. How is Bones describing bottom surgery enough to make you wince? The end result is that you never really feel like you have a clean grasp on what the episode believes. Generally speaking, the way I deduce an episode's opinion on a subject is by looking at how Booth feels about it, because if he's not on the right side from the get-go, he usually comes around to it by the end. Here, though, his position feels a little ambiguous.
What was your reaction when you found out that Pastor Patricia wasn't a real woman?
Don't say Patty wasn't a real woman. It makes you sound ignorant.
The pastor came between you and your wife, but she was living a lie. You lost your manhood and your religion all in one go. Or what? Did prison just widen your tastes?
You're just pretending to be a jerk to get a rise out of this guy, right?
We never actually get a clear answer to that question. And it would have been very helpful if we had. Generally speaking, he's doing his best to be respectful, although there are also moments here and there where it feels like maybe there's a little more to his thoughts on the matter.
Patrick was a religious man. He would never offend God in this blatant manner.
The theft, you mean, because it's a sin?
A sex change operation. We are made in God's image, Dr. Brennan. Who are we to alter that image?
Obviously, you dye your hair. There's evidence of plastic surgery.
That's different.
Bones.
How?
It's augmenting God's work, not undoing it completely.
He explained that lady's thought process a little too quickly. Makes me feel like maybe he agrees with it on some level. When the show wants us to know he's open-minded on a topic, they don't hesitate to make it crystal clear where he stands. I can think of at least 2 times in the show's run where they've dedicated whole scenes to having him say in no uncertain terms that he's not a homophobe. So the fact that they don't really do something similar here leads me to believe that his opinions on the subject aren't quite so cut and dry. Still, if he is harboring some transphobia, he's being good about it. He's not always this tolerant of people he doesn't understand, lest you forget. This is what he said about a victim with a pony play fetish.
Maybe if Ed lived like a man, he wouldn't have died like a horse.
And I guess this is all just a long way of saying that I don't think that the show knows how Booth feels. It honestly kind of feels like they're hesitant to choose a firm side for him one way or the other. This episode was interesting because it felt like I was watching someone explore uncharted territory, and because of that, they ended up taking a very different path than you would expect. I don't think this episode would be made this way post-2012. I think that once trans issues became a little more streamlined, network TV dramas learned to follow one of 2 paths. Either they wouldn't touch the issue with a 10-foot pole and they just pretend like trans people don't exist in their world, or they would make it very clear that they were pro-trans by having a character slowly learn to overcome their prejudices. Maybe it's just because of that one episode of The Good Doctor that went viral, but I think there's an alternate version of this that came out a few years later where Bones is a lot turfier than she is here. Also, should I talk about that episode of The Good Doctor? Or any episode of The Good Doctor? I've never seen it before and I'm really intrigued. Seriously though, tell me you can't picture this. Bones can't comprehend calling someone a woman when she studies their skeleton and sees that their pelvic bone is male, but then slowly she comes around and learns that gender isn't as scientific as she thought. Honestly, I'm surprised that that episode doesn't exist. It doesn't though, as far as I know. In this episode, it very much feels like they're trying to figure out how her overly literal mind would apply to trans people. And they settle on her acting like one trans person is actually two different people.
Patrick Stevenson wasn't murdered, Patricia Ludmuller was.
You think the moment Patricia Ludmuller came to exist, Patrick Stevenson stopped?
When the butterfly emerges, does the caterpillar cease to exist?
Okay, what are you, like some kind of kung fu master?
And this sort of seems to be the correct answer. I think the episode as a whole takes the same position as Bones in a way that honestly feels kind of weird sometimes. It treats Patrick as a wholly different person from Patricia, and in doing so, it kind of lets Patricia off the hook a little bit. Like I said, Patrick was kind of a terrible person, but they treat Patricia like this saintly figure in a way that completely ignores the fact that she is Patrick. Ultimately, she also did those things that made Patrick bad.
Look, it seems as though your husband sent a check made out to the church every month.
$100 a month?
Mm-hmm.
So Patrick was repaying us for the money he took?
Actually, it's more accurate to say that Patricia was repaying you for the money that Patrick took.
And I guess to be fair, that seems to be the point of the episode. I'd say it's less about trans issues and more about redemption. I think the fact that the victim was trans was more meant to be a metaphor for the fact that people can change. If I were to try and pick a thesis from this episode, it would be this moment when Booth is interrogating Patricia's son, who's also a pastor, but like a hip, young, open-minded one.
Do you believe in redemption?
Yes, I do.
One of God's challenges to us is to see past the surface. To the deeper essential nature, which lies right beneath.
You believe our bodies are like dust covers?
It's exactly what I think, Agent Booth. Rip them off and see what's underneath.
And again, that doesn't super make sense in the context of the episode because rip off Patricia's dust jacket and she did still scam a bunch of people, but even still, you gotta admit that that is way better than you thought Bones was capable of when you clicked on this video. And this honestly leads to some of the best, most interesting parts of the episode. The writers make a lot of connections between transitioning and Christian ideology, and that seems to connect with Booth and his Catholic faith.
I'm sorry that I didn't get to know my father, Patricia. But I hope I will find him. Her. That redeemed human being. Both in her old Bible and more importantly, new. The people who she loved and loved her back. Redemption through transformation, Bones, I get it.
And those connections shouldn't be surprising. But watching it today, they kind of are. Nowadays, there are enough expectations about how a Catholic might feel about a trans person that, like I said, you'd think that there would be a moment where Booth had to either confirm or deny those expectations. But there's not. In this episode, Booth doesn't seem to react to the situation based on any societal preconceptions. He's kind of just reacting how the writers think Booth would react. And that actually feels pretty rare for this sort of thing. I said earlier that I don't think the show knows how Booth feels about trans people yet, but I think a more accurate way to put it is that he's still figuring it out. And I think that's because the people making this show are still figuring it out on some level. And ultimately, I think the message here is definitely meant to be pro-trans, but it's pro-trans in the same way that E.T. is pro-alien. If that makes sense. I never get the sense that anyone making this even considered the possibility that there might be an actual trans person out there who could see this. It's arguing in favor of trans people, but it feels like more of a philosophical debate than anything. And when they keep things philosophical, it mostly works. It's ironically only the parts where they try to treat trans people as actual people that things start to feel a little bit iffy. If I were to show you one clip that best sums up what this episode is like, it would probably be this one.
Okay, but for now on, he is always a she. She was a he when she died, so she deserves the respect due to him or her, okay? Person.
Okay, I'm a genius and I'm confused.
I feel like I probably didn't even need to show you that for you to know it was in there. I think if I told you that there was a Bones episode about a trans person, your first question would probably be, how many scenes are there of the characters not understanding pronouns? And the answer is quite a few.
Perhaps that's why there's no record of this guy, woman.
Okay, have you ruled out completely that Patricia Ludmuller's murder might be because of something that happened before he became a woman?
Why don't we just figure out who killed this guy, gal, person?
Still, this one in particular stuck out to me because if you slow it down and really listen, you realize that what Booth just said doesn't even follow its own internal logic. He started that sentence with a very simple declaration. We're going to call her from now on. So the fact that he's unable to keep that going for longer than 2 words is honestly kinda strange. By the time Bones pipes in with her whole, I'm a genius and I'm confused thing, it becomes clear what the show is doing here. They're trying to make this more confusing than it is. It very much feels like whoever wrote this believed that having moments where the characters have trouble figuring this stuff out was necessary, which is silly. Especially in this show. These people are supposed to be very intelligent. It's funny to me that a character struggles with pronouns. In the same episode, they say this.
Oh, I have a retentive memory.
At the same time, though, I get it. I think that one of the earliest hurdles a lot of people have with expanding their views on gender is getting the hang of what pronouns to use. So this is probably a very important part of the presumably cis writer's experience that they felt the need to include it. I know a lot of intelligent people who have had trouble getting the hang of pronouns in the past, and I don't think it's because they're bigoted or secretly stupid. More than anything, I think it's just that this is still new to them, and they're a bit in their head because they're trying to get it right. Which is not to say that there isn't blatant transphobia in this episode. There are a lot of really gross moments that are just characters expressing prejudices they have within themselves that they don't realize they need to work on yet, and some of them probably never will. What I will say is that even a lot of the blatant transphobia in this episode feels well-intentioned. Like, I don't know if you guys know that meme of Kelly Osbourne on The View, but this episode has a lot of the same vibes as that.
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm saying that...
Like, it seems like the goal here is to defy expectations of trans people, but they do that by having the trans person be a respected member of her community with someone who wants to be with her, but she doesn't act on it because he's married and she respects that, and also everyone who knows her knows she's trans and they're cool with it. So like, if that's defying expectations of trans people, then It makes me think that their expectations aren't great. Still, like I said, they're trying. It's just hard for them. They're not really sure what they're doing yet. And I think that's where things start to get complicated. There's one moment where Booth's demeanor feels a little hostile, and that's directly after Sweets corrects his use of the term real woman.
He had no idea that she wasn't a real woman.
It's very insightful.
Thank you. Insightful, see?
Except for the real woman slip.
Have you made...
He's frustrated. He's trying to get this right, but he can't, and so he lashes out. I think that's weirdly insightful. Accidentally. And while again, I don't condone that, it does make sense to me. If I learned one thing from Hodgins in this episode, it's that people don't like change. It's hard, and when people are forced to do it, they will often just blame someone who doesn't deserve it, because that's a lot easier than learning how to adapt.
Grad student?
He's done very well so far.
He'll disappoint.
Why?
Watching this episode, it's hard not to think about that thing that transphobes always say about how when archaeologists dig you up in 1,000 years, they're gonna say, you're a man or you're a woman. And man, is that a dumb thing to say. I mean, sure, if Mr. Nigel Murray is to be believed, your skeleton will give whatever archaeologist is examining you some clues about what gender you were assigned at birth, but who the fuck knows what they'll have to say about that? It'll probably be a series of beeps. Odds are that archaeology will be done by robots at that point. And even if they do care deeply about gender, who gives a fuck what some bitch-ass robot from the future thinks about how you lived your life? That has no impact on you. Also, why should you value their opinion? They sound like a real nerd. They could be off doing cool robot shit, but instead they're digging up a bunch of old bones and transvestigating them for some reason. We like to think that the world we live in is stable, but the truth is that it's always changing, whether we like it or not. And I think that's why so many people try to fight that change. They want to believe on some level that that's possible. It's not, though, which is scary. And because we're ultimately just a bunch of dumb apes, rather than trying to accept that, a lot of us never stop fighting. We just change our target to something that feels a little less daunting than the entire concept of change. Watching this episode, I had two takeaways. One, people are ultimately well-intentioned. In the abstract, most of us just want to vibe and get along. Two, we are very stupid, so when we actually go to do that, we have a lot of trouble pulling it off. And I don't know if that's a hopeful thing to say, because I think if there's one thing that'll never change, is that we're always going to be stupid. I don't think there's ever going to come a day where we suddenly figure out how to get it right and keep it that way. As things continue to change, we'll continue to fight against those changes in stupid ways, and in doing so, we'll probably end up changing other things that we briefly got right, and then future generations will try to change those things back, and others will fight against that change, and so on until 1,000 years from now when some robot digs up your bones and puts way too much emphasis on your pelvis. And I want to be clear that I don't think that this is an excuse. Nobody should have to tolerate being on the end of someone else's stupidity. It's just that the older I get, the more I think it's inevitable that some of us will. Still, while I don't know if what I'm saying is hopeful, I do think that there's hope. This episode isn't really that old, so to see how much has shifted in that short amount of time since it aired is terrifying, but also a little comforting too. Like I said, things have gotten a lot worse in a short amount of time, and while that sucks, it also means that they can get a lot better. Change is inevitable. But yeah, that's my video. Please like and subscribe and share and comment. And super thanks if you want. I will super thanks my next video, as I don't feel like finding the names to super thanks today. But I appreciate it if you super thanks me. Know that a thank you is coming your way imminently. Also, as the summer has progressed, my drunk purchases have gotten a little bit out of hand, so that means that I'm going to up my ghoul production. And so I recently made another ghoul. Seems to be in the other room. 1 second, I'll be right back. Okay, so at the beginning of the summer, I decided to teach myself to crochet, and I wanted to make something cherry blossom related. My dog just walked in. Want to get up here? Get up here. Get up here. You're just gonna walk in and get up here. Hi, buddy. All right, so I wanted to make something cherry blossom related, and so I started crocheting these cherry blossoms, and then I stopped making those and decided I wasn't gonna make something cherry blossom related. And hi, buddy, you're really cute. I'm easily distracted. What was I doing? Oh, describing my ghoul. So yeah, I made a bunch of cherry blossoms, and then they were just hanging around the house, and I decided I'll make a cherry blossom ghoul. Yeah. So anyway, this is Beth. She's a bit freakish, as you can see. I thought she would be like a beautiful, like flowery creature. She's kind of looks like She just kind of looks like a old swim cap come to life. But yeah, she is going to be available for purchase. What I will say though is I'm still in the process of making Beth. As you can see, her ass is a bit exposed. So I'm gonna add more flowers, but I wasn't done adding flowers. So I think I'm gonna add like at least 10 more flowers to Beth to sort of full her out. The ends of my videos are never like coherent, but I feel like this one is pushing it even by my standards. Anyway, bye Beth. Or don't. Link below. Goodbye. Hello, Dipper, you actually might need to move for this one. It's time to pose. Why are you kissing my hand? You're so weird. You're so weird, buddy. Get down. Get down. Get down. Wonk. I need to pose. He's licking my knee now. Stop licking my knee. He's really weird. Anyway, I gotta pose for the thumbnail. That works. He won't stop licking my knee. Oh, okay, he stopped. Okay. So, he started again. Stop licking me. He's my best friend. So like, I'm filming this later in the day, and I think there's a chance that my Vyvanse has worn off. So it's going to be called When Bones Got Transphobic. I think I'm probably going to have a picture of Bones here being like, I'm a genius and I don't understand pronouns. There's not a lot of good images from this episode, but that is a little funny thing that she says. Like, what? There's a wire in front of my face right here. I hate bending over. I promise you guys, I'm not as thin-haired as I look, but whenever I'm on camera, it like expands. It shows more of my scalp because I have a lot of bright lights, and I hate bending over. I'm gonna have to look at that later. But Tipper, stop scratching yourself. I don't know if that's picking up on Mike, but he's making quite a bit of noise there, scratching himself. Huh? I feel like this section used to be about the posing. Now I don't even know why it's... Oh, because I need to let my patrons' names scroll. Thank you, patrons. So like, yeah, like, ooh. Bigotry. I don't know. I hope people aren't, like, upset that it's not more transphobic. Dipper! Stop it! Dipper! No! I don't know. What am I doing? I haven't... This is the longest my beard has ever gotten because I have to shave. I've had lint in this in my beard the entire time, so like I'll start over and just do my... How do you know if you're a hunchback? I feel like I've asked this before, but I'm definitely like getting there. Dipper! This is chaos. Arr! 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 He's better at barking than I am. Ooh. Ooh. What's the matter, you? Dipper, I swear to God. He has the worst bark in the world. What do you even say? I'm just gonna call it there. Thanks for watching. Ow.